shut off our lights when we leave the room. That's really, really important, huh? Hopefully you do that at home as well, don't you?
And garbage for the earth.
Garbage for the earth. How can we use our oh, Sophie had a good one, Bailey. How can we use our garbage to help the earth?
What the genesis of the district going green wasn't necessarily was anything about going green. It really started with what I saw as a continuing downward pressure from the school board to the superintendent to run the business of the district like a business. And that meant a couple of things to us. It meant being efficient and effective with taxpayers' money, number one, but it also meant getting the most productivity out of your people every day as they did their job. And as we looked for ways to do that, it became pretty clear that a lot of people see green initiatives and efficiency and effectiveness as kind of being at odds with each other, and actually the opposite is the case. As we look to ways to become more efficient and effective, green was one of the ways to do that. So the genesis was really more a business focus than it was a green focus.
When we are green, we're looking at efficiency in our energy use. We're looking at ways we can save money that can go ultimately back into the classrooms. And we're looking at systems that allow us to maximize how we use our resources and how we maintain our resources in such a way that we're being good to our earth, good to our students' future, but good to our economy and our school district.
We looked at our energy bill last year and we spent about $10 million paying energy bills. And when you have an item in your budget that's that big, you can't not look at it and just say, is there a way to do this better? So it was really the dollar amount that started all of this. We had some conversation with a company named Energy Education. They are in the business of helping other businesses reduce energy costs. About 18 months ago, we entered into a formal relationship with them, and that relationship continues today. And in fact, to date, we've saved about $3.5 million in electricity primarily as a result of this program. Energy education really has two focuses. One is technology and the other is behavior.
Being an energy manager entails looking out for the taxpayer's best interest. We are trying to save the district money, which in turn saves us money as the taxpayers. We're trying to reduce electric costs, reduce our water costs, reduce our gas costs. We're just trying to reduce costs across the board.
Well, we started in the very beginning tracking all of the district utility costs in a computer software program, and after doing all of the data work, then we branched out into going and speaking to all the staff members throughout the district, both teachers and district level, about what we would like them to do to play their part of the whole game. And then beyond that, we have had some schools who have asked that we come and speak to their students during the energy programs, and so I have done some speaking engagements at Philippi Shores to their students over energy conservation. Our goal is to reduce how much we use so that we reduce how much money the district has to spend on electricity and water and the things that maybe we can save money on so that then we have more money for classrooms and for activities for students. Specifics that make it real for people are the turning off of equipment and lights, things that you do every day at home that you probably don't think much about, that on an amplified level of our size of school district makes a huge impact in the utilities. We also oversee the HVAC, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, which is more of a behind-the-scenes effort, scheduling of our systems, making sure that they're being used when it's occupied and turned off when it's not.
When I walk into a building to do an energy audit, I use my ears as much as I use my eyes. A lot of times I arrive at work at 4 or 4:30 in the morning so I can get to my first building by 5 a.m. At 5 a.m. everything is very quiet, or at least it should be. So when you walk into the building, the first thing you'll notice is an exhaust fan that's running that maybe shouldn't be, or ceiling fans in a classroom. You can pick that up a couple of classrooms away just because of the sound that it makes. You can hear a printer running. You can hear a computer that's been left on running. There's an active board that has speakers. You hear the speakers running the teacher during the day would never hear because of the noise level. So by using your ears, you come into a place and you find things that should be off that aren't off. Sometimes it's a people problem. The teacher or whoever's in that classroom forgot to turn something off that night. Other times it's a mechanical problem. When you walk into a building and you find exhaust fans running, or maybe an air conditioning equipment running that shouldn't be at the time because they're scheduled to be off, you know you've lost a communication line. We have computers that control the system, and there's communication lines, phone lines that run throughout the district that tell these things to go off or sends a signal signal these things to go off or to come on. Well, when you use that, when you lose the phone line, the communication lines, they default to the run position, which means they run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So by us being in the schools before hours or after hours and listening and picking up on these things, we can get the service repair done a lot quicker and start saving us money again.
Our energy policies and procedures make a difference in the classroom by making sure that during occupied times we have an optimal comfort level from temperature, humidity control, and lighting. And then when it's not occupied, saving those dollars so it can be put back into the funds to be used for more programs or teacher salaries to help save during such tough times as we're currently in.
I think taxpayers are in good hands with the energy management team because we all care. You know, we care about the kids, we care about the teachers, we care about the administration, and we care about the taxpayer. We're all taxpayers. You know, every week or every 2 weeks when we get our paycheck, we look at it, we see things coming out. Every year we get our tax bill on our home, we see, you know, that portion for schools coming out. We know what it feels like, and you know, we're trying to save them money, we're trying to save us money, and we're just trying to do what's right for the kids and for the teachers. The kids are the most important part. If you're not doing something every day for the kids in this district, then you need to go find something else to do. And I really think that's, you know, our job is to save money to provide more things for the students in this district.
We'll begin by taking a look at the entrance to the building, which is, you know, the design for Elementary I was based on the same one that they used for Cranberry and Tatum Ridge and Lamar.
Woodland Middle School and Elementary I are great examples of green construction. First and foremost, Woodland Middle School, as you know, is our newest middle school in South County, the city of Northport, just south of I-75. It will be, isn't yet because we're still in the paperwork process, but will be the first LEED certified school or green building ever built in Sarasota County as a public school. It's a good example because we really focused on, again, for operational cost reasons more than green reasons, but we focused our construction efforts on how does that building become easier and more cost effective to maintain. How do you get there? Things like occupant-sensitive lighting. How do you control energy? One of them is the lights automatically come on when you enter the room. When you leave and there isn't motion, the lights automatically come off. Savings. When you go into the restrooms at that school, you'll find dual flush toilets. You'll find low flow sinks. Again, our mission wasn't necessarily to be green, but to save, in these cases, electricity and water costs. So you put your hands underneath the sink, the water comes on, you take them away, the water goes off. So as we're saving dollars in energy costs, we're also saving the resources that go along with those. LEED, as you said, the acronym, LEED is an acronym, Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, is one of several ways that you can green certify a building. And essentially what LEED does is it looks at several different areas. It looks at how you design your site. It looks at how you manage the electrical part of energy. It looks at how you manage water, not only the use of water, but the runoff of water. It looks at things like the types of materials you use in the construction of the building. And it looks at, are there innovative things you're doing in designing your building to be more energy efficient? And there's essentially a big checklist that you go down, and as you do some of these things, you get a point for them. And you add up all the points at the end of the construction project, and if you exceed the LEED threshold, the building is LEED certifiable.
You know, we also have an opportunity to see some of the construction taking place, and a good point to highlight that we've used a lot of recycled steel throughout the construction of our school. Anytime they had an opportunity to take excess steel and melt it down and build it back into some of the structural building materials, which they also tried to get a lot of regional or local building materials to use in the construction of Elementary I, they've been able to do that. So building in the recycling program that we've had, in terms of the construction process, and then we can carry that over into the recycling program that we're going to have here in school, where throughout our hallways we're going to have recycle stations for papers and plastics and things of that nature. And we're also going to have in every single classroom recycling centers set up for our students to use, so that we can start building in some of those, you know, earth-friendly practices that we want our students to be learning and to become experts in, so that they can continue to conserve and preserve the resources that we have available to us here in Florida.
I think the certification itself is way less important than how you get there. To me, what LEED certification is a plaque that you can hang on the front of your school that says we're LEED certified. And there's power in that. It sends a message to the community that you're paying attention to things like management of energy and how you build your buildings. The real power in LEED or any of the green certification initiatives is what it forces you to focus on, not only when you build the building, but as you maintain it. A great example, you mentioned elementary I. You get a point for innovative construction techniques under LEED. Elementary I is built with a tilt wall construction, and what that means is you have a big concrete slab on the ground, you build a form, you pour into a mold, and then you tilt that concrete wall up.
Well, what they ended up doing was grinding up that concrete, and that became the base for the bus loop and the parking lots. So that instead of bringing in more material to use as a base and just discarding the concrete, what we went ahead and did was, again, grind that up, and that became the base, and so that was a great way to recycle some more of the building products that we have here on campus.
Let me use the example of the tile in the bathrooms. A taxpayer could look at the construction of the building and say, geez, there was a cost associated with that ceramic tile on the walls. Yes, there was, but the savings shows up in how quickly the custodian can get in and out of there, and thus we can reduce the size of the custodial staff to clean that school. So every year, year after year, for 50 years at least, we hope that school stands, we will be saving the custodial costs of cleaning that bathroom.
It's a blessing, because in the past we would use this method here, and this would be attached to a water hose, and this setting here adjusts, and a lot of times what would happen, the adjustment wouldn't be where it was needed, and the custodians were getting too much or not enough chemical. With this system we go to now, it's self-contained, and it's in this piece of equipment right here, and we're taking one piece to the restroom, and we're doing the whole restroom with one piece, opposed to grabbing a garden hose, a foam gun, and then a wet vac. What's happened in the past is we couldn't do the restrooms as efficient, and we wouldn't do them as often as we could because the system required a lot of extra work and we didn't have the staffing to do it. Now with this system here, we're more efficient and more thorough. And the main part about this system is we utilize green products.
And in the school system, the chemicals that are here to my right are chemicals that were used in the past 15 years to clean and make sure the schools were healthy and safe for the student body to use. These chemicals at different points in time were state-of-the-art chemicals that disinfected and sanitized the schools and kept them safe and healthy for the students to use. As the country has led itself to the practice, in words of green cleaning, Sarasota County Schools watched that practice being implemented, and for the past 4 years has been looking at what the manufacturers have been producing to replace the type of chemicals that we were using in a very economical dilution ratio. It took the industry over 2 years to come forward with chemicals that had a stronger dilution ratio that made them cost effective to clean with. And those chemicals that we ended up selecting to my left are here and do represent the chemicals that we use today in total to clean the schools throughout the district. Every one of these chemicals are green chemicals. And when I say green, they're Green Seal certified, which means in Green Seal that they are safe to use, safe for the environment, and safe for anyone that comes in contact with them.
Let's start at the very beginning. When we buy vehicles, and I mean both buses and what we call the white fleet, the vehicles that your staff and my staff use as they go about their jobs. One of the things that we look at when we buy any new vehicle is their gas mileage. Our buses are on the road better than 6 million miles a year, so even 1 or 2 miles per gallon in a bus makes a big difference. So when we buy buses, and we'll buy this year about 22 new buses, when we buy buses, we look at all the vendors who sell 77 passenger buses and pay a lot of attention to what's the gas mileage rating. That's where it starts. Once we get them and we bring them on the road, then we have a software package that helps us decide how we route the buses. And essentially what that software package does is look for the shortest way between 10 or 12 or 14 points so that the bus is on the road less. The other thing we pay attention to now is all of the buses we purchase are ultra low sulfur producing engines, so that what comes out the exhaust of the bus is as low carbon monoxide emitting as you can buy in a school bus.
I'm proud of a lot of green efforts we've done. We were one of the first ones to go to ultra low sulfur fuel. We went to biodiesels and e-fuels for gas engine vehicles. How well we keep our vehicles maintained. Every 30 days they're inspected to make sure that they are in top running order. Right now I am working on a grant, and it looks very, very promising that I'll receive a grant where all of our older engines, the grant for the EPA will put particulate filters on them. It'll be for about 125 buses. It'll save the district about $250,000 through this grant. No matter how clean they burn, it is emitting a small amount of pollution into the environment. We've adopted an idling policy where we can only idle a vehicle for 5 minutes before we shut it down. Some of the other things that we have done is, as I've looked to buy buses, we buy larger buses so you can put more students on it. It saves your deadhead miles. Also gives the children a little bit more room because children today are bigger than they were a few years ago. And the Mercedes engines which we've bought in those buses are much more fuel efficient, and they do meet and have met 2010 specifications for the last 5 or 6 years.
We've had 2 of our buildings recently Energy Star rated. Energy Star is a recognition that comes from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, and what the EPA really does is they compare like buildings across the nation. In our case, we are a commercial building, and they recognize specific numbers of buildings for what they call superior energy efficiency and environmental protection. Typically what they do is recognize the top 25% of buildings in any one of those categories. So what that means today is that both the Landings Complex, the central office for the school board, and Lamarck Elementary in Northport are in the top 25% of buildings in the nation relative to the way that they manage energy. The 2 quantifiable things that I think are interesting in that whole process: first, to get this award, you have to use 40% or more less energy than like buildings. Think about that number. 40% less energy, and put 35% less carbon monoxide back into the environment. So very, very positive in terms of the impact on the environment.
And we worked on implementing and tracking all of the data from those sites through their utility usage as well as their square footage, goes through a process of evaluation through a professional engineer to make sure that we're using optimal lighting and ventilation and air conditioning control, and they still manage to use a reduced amount compared to the average building or school throughout the nation.
Getting an Energy Star rating means you're the best of the best. Puts you in the upper 75%. It means you're outperforming in the state of Florida. Our school district was already doing things before the energy management team got into place. They had the foresight years ago, and I'm thinking 17, 18 years ago, to start what's called thermal storage. What that allows us to do is to produce air conditioning at night when nobody's there, but when costs are less than it is during the day.
What we have here are our chiller tanks, and the way these work is these operate and make ice at night when the school is unoccupied, when it's the lowest possible energy cost for the district, and it creates all the ice. And then once the day comes along, what happens at that point is that as the ice starts to melt, that chilled water is then moved throughout the plant, and that's the energy that we use to help cool the building. So we're not running our electricity, and we're not using as much electricity at the highest cost time. We're using the highest electricity when it's cheapest to use, and it's a great green feature that we have. It's a great cost savings feature, so we can direct that right back to the classrooms.
So they were doing that. They also started with Tampa Bay Train, who's a partner with the facilities department for Sarasota County Schools. They've started an energy management system, I'm going to go back 15 years anyway, which allows us to control when certain areas come on, when certain areas go off in the way of heating and ventilation, which allows us to control cost. Again, our purpose is to keep our client, our teachers, our principals, our students, cool when there. But our purpose is not to keep the furniture, the carpet, the walls cold when no one's home.
About 2 years ago, if you would have looked at the way we landscaped our schools, there really was no logic. We kind of bought and put in whatever the principals in the schools asked for. We also found that we were spending an awful lot of money, not just on installing irrigation systems, but maintaining them. You're constantly chasing your tail with maintenance of irrigation. So under the leadership of Jody Dumas, our Director of Facilities, we looked very deliberately at Florida-friendly, Florida-native plants. Today we have a catalog of those plants. When we either build new or re-landscape an existing school, we give that catalog to the school. And we say, we can pretty much do whatever it is you want us to do within these guidelines, and we give them that catalog. What that allows us to do is put in just Florida native plants, which are not only much easier to maintain, they don't need to be trimmed and those kinds of things as often, but once they're established, and we water them until they get established, but once they're established, they don't need water.
The sustainability of what we are doing here at Elementary I is we are making sure that we have systems in place that are able to, after we kind of get them up and started, they're able to run themselves. What we're looking forward to with our landscape design is we have the drip irrigation in place for about a year to help all of that root, help it all establish. And then what we plan on doing is letting it go, cutting off the irrigation system at that point and allowing plants and trees that have taken root and that are flourishing to continue to flourish. And that goes right back to our design where we incorporate all the drought resistant plantings and a lot of the Florida native plants that we have. So the sustainability piece that we have here on campus is something that is very important to us because we have a little bit of an investment up front, but then what we see is that it just continues to pay off in the long run, that we're not having to reinvest all the time in terms of operation, in terms of maintenance of the facilities, so that we can then take that money, turn it right back to the classroom so it directly affects our kids.
There is an effort in our district to move towards a very deliberate farm-to-school program. I would not tell you yet that we have a formal farm-to-school program, but we're headed in that direction very, very quickly. Right now, today, we are in conversation with the National Farm-to-School Network. We're in conversation with the Florida Department of Agriculture, both who play really key roles in the farm-to-school issue. Farm-to-school really says buy produce from local farmers. A couple of benefits from that. One, you're buying it local, so there's an economic impact in that you're keeping your dollars in the local community. From a nutritional perspective, though, you're buying fresher fruits and vegetables. They're ripening on the vine as opposed to ripening in the vehicle that transport them to school. So there are both economic and nutritional reasons to move to farm to school. Well, I said we don't have a formal program yet. We will in the very near future, and we will probably be the first public school district in the state of Florida to have a formal farm to school program. We have a very deliberate, very aggressive recycle program in the district today, not only at the offices where we're producing paper, but in every single one of our schools. And that's where you really see the benefit. Not only is that where our supplies are used the most, but part of the success of our recycle program is the fact that teachers and students are an integral part of what we do. The custodial staff own the program, but it only works because the teachers and the students are involved. Today we recycle paper, cardboard, plastic, and cans. This past year, we recycled about 500 tons of material. Not only do you keep that from going into landfill, but we sell the recycle, and typically, in a typical year, somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 in just the revenue that's generated by recycling materials.
I just think that everybody really needs to understand that by doing simple little things, it really adds up, and it's an investment in the future, and it's a good way to spend your time, and it's a great way to help because you make a huge difference. And if you get everybody to do it with you, it's fun too.
I think certainly it has helped give a legacy to our children of maintaining this earth in such a way that it will be around for a long time, but it's also educating the new users of those resources in such a manner that they're also going to be very mindful, so that generation after generation of our students will really love this wonderful environment called Earth and will protect it for the future.
Think about the things that we've talked about. It really starts before they get on the school bus and doesn't end until after they get off the school bus. We make a point to make sure that the buses that our kids get on at the beginning of the day are energy efficient and are friendly to the environment. Once they get to school, we work very hard to create an environment that's conducive to learning, and that shows up in a whole bunch of ways. The management of the environment itself, efficient and effective air conditioners, for example. The chemicals that our custodians use today are such that the students are in an environment where they're not exposed to chemicals, so they're thinking about learning, not thinking about chemical exposure. And then, of course, when they go to lunch, the more we move to farm to school, the more we have more nutritious meals. And then, of course, we get them home on those same efficient buses. So this entire program is about creating learning spaces where teachers can be successful and their students can be successful.
I think our taxpayers should be very proud of the way this school district is mindful of the resources that they provide through their tax dollars. We are all so conscious of how we spend those dollars, and we want to make it in such a way that we are focusing on our primary mission, teaching and learning. And by instituting these types of new behaviors, new cultures, new systems, we really are maximizing their dollars. So I think they'd be very proud of us.